In this video, what I'm going to show you is how to use Clerk. So Clerk is a user management platform here. As you can see, we essentially want to have some sort of authentication on our app. So we will be building a creator dashboard, which I have over here. First of all, with Clerk, you can see on the landing page here, it gives you everything that you need. So pixel perfect UIs in minutes, such as these ones here. We will go through them at the start. And then what we will do later on in this crash course is we will build our own custom UIs to handle all of this process over here. So our own sign up and sign in pages, along with our own functionality. So you can scroll down, you can see further information on what we use with Clerk. You can see here all of the features we have, along with session management, email, one-time passcodes, social sign-in, and a lot more things. We are going to be using the Next.js SDK in this build, and you can also integrate it with some databases like Supabase, Convex, and also Firebase, which I have done a lot on this channel already around Firebase, so you can plug that in. On top of this, you also have a solution for multi-tenancy. What I'm going to be doing is a separate video on this, but we will cover the basics and creating our custom UIs in this crash course. And then here are some testimonials that you can see. So what we're actually going to be building is this CreatorHub over here. So the tech stack used in this one is Next.js along with Clerk for authentication and Tailwind for CSS. We're using Next.js 15 as well. So what we have here is a Creator Hub. So here you can see it's a simple app demonstrating Clerk integration with Next.js app router. So essentially, at the end of this video, you can clone it as a starting point for creating your own authentication system. So if we click on sign up, first of all, we have this section here where you can sign up. You can also add in your Google login if you want to sign up through that, or you can also click sign in. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to walk through the process of the sign up process. So you have your email address, your passwords, everything is verified. Then once you sign up, we have the email verification where we send a verification code to your email address that has a passcode in there. We have a new UI that pops up, and then we put in the passcode, and then you log in and you are able to see the dashboard that we want to see. So what we're going to do now is first of all sign in. So let's sign in with Google because we already are signed in. And then here we have our dashboard where we can see all of our information. If I was to go back into the Creator Hub, and now can click through to the dashboard, and I can also go to the profile page. This is the Clerk UI that we have. Again, you can enhance on this from the crash course. So you will learn how to add your own functionality in. So you can see here, this is the account dashboard over here where you can update the profile, add your email addresses, and this is the connected account. Again, you have security here, and you can also set a password as well. So let me just click back to the Creator Hub, go to the dashboard. I can see my information in here. I can also see the user profile in here as well. We can sign out through Clerk, or we have our custom own sign out button. So if you click sign out here, then you can go back to this page. So all of this you will learn in this crash course, plus more to do with server-side rendering with Next.js, how Clerk uses server-side and client-side rendering, and you can use the methods that are relevant to each one. So now we've covered all of that, what we're going to be doing is getting started with the build. Right, so let's get started. First thing you want to do is essentially create an account with Clerk. Then you can access the dashboard. So if you click into the dashboard, what will happen is you'll have all the information you need to get started with your build. On my accounts here, I've got some users that have signed up, but we will start from scratch. So let's delete these users. And then what we will do is we will get set up on the project. So what we want to do is we want to do a Next.js app. So we can do the latest, which is npx create next app. So we'll do the latest, and then we're going to call this the Creator Hub. Once that creates, it'll go through a few questions. So we want to select yes for TypeScript, no for ESLint, yes for Tailwind. We're just basically following all of the recommended conventions that Next.js provides for us. This will then set up the app for us and get everything set up. Right, so now that is set up, what I want to do is cd into the Creator Hub app. And then all we want to do is open it up in a VS Code terminal. So if we expand this, I can close Copilot down, and this, we want to just create a new terminal in here. Let me zoom in a little bit. And here we have our app router and so on. This is essentially what we would have in the boilerplate for Next.js. And if you don't know about Next.js 15, I've done a crash course on what everything is and all the features that it has to offer. So we're going to skip that for now. what I want to do now is find the docs for Clerk itself. So you can choose the SDK you want to use. In our scenario, we've got the Next.js Quick Start App Router in here. There's a few things on this page that you can use. On the right hand side, these are the steps that you need. And then also you can copy the page as markdown, edit in GitHub. And then this one here is opening ChatGPT, which is a handy tool to have. Essentially what it does is it gives you step-by-step instructions of what you can do in here. If it's not on the docs and you want to find it, then you can find and ask questions in ChatGPT, which is handy as well. So let's just leave this one for now. We're just going to follow this scenario over here, which we've done the first step, which is fine. Then we need to install Clerk/Next.js. So let's install that as well. So in our project in package.json, we have these as the dependencies: React DOM, React 19, Next.js 15, and then the relevant dependencies. This will also install Tailwind CSS for us. And then we just need to install Clerk/Next.js. So this will install Clerk and everything that it offers for us. Let me clear this out. And what I want to do is run npm run dev. And then if we go back into the docs over here again, it says here step 3, add Clerk middleware to your app, which essentially grants you access to user authentication state throughout your app, which is handy. So we do need that one. So let me just copy this. And if you don't know about middlewares, essentially middlewares will intercept before anything gets rendered. So this is the first thing that happens before your Next.js app works. And I've also done a tutorial on what middlewares are. So essentially at the top level in the Next.js, we create a new file, and this is called middleware.ts. And in here, we can just paste in the middleware that Clerk provides. So now we just save that. And now we have access to Clerk itself. So now in our app, we can essentially copy this. So now actually, let's just copy this for now and run our app. So this is in the layout.tsx file. So we go in here, go into layout.tsx, Command A and V, and then let's just save that. So now what will happen is it's compile the middleware, that's fine. We just need to go into our local host and let's see what it is. It's 3001. So let's open that one up. And you can see this is our final build. This is what we want to get to. So in here now we have our boilerplate with Next.js. But what you will see here is sign in and sign up. So if we look into what we've just imported in the Clerk provider, you can see here we have the Clerk provider, we have the HTML and body tags, and then within the header, so you can see in the top bar, we have the sign out section. So basically we are signed out at the minute, and then we also have the signed in section over here. So what we want to do essentially is we want to display anything that is signed out in here and then display anything that is signed in here. We have a sign in button, which is a Clerk component. We have a sign up button, which is a Clerk component. And we also have the user button, which is also a Clerk component. So that is all of the components we have. So let's go back into our app again once more. You can see here the sign up button, and then now you have the sign in button as well. This then renders the sign in component that we need, so we can sign in with Google and the email address and so on. So let me just click sign in with Google and let's see what actually happens with this app. We sign in, continue. So this is signing us in, and essentially we should get the sign in account here. So now you can essentially claim your application. So let's go ahead and do that. So we claim the application. This is where we set up everything. So this is where we are going to create the CreatorHub. So this is the setup. It's the CreatorHub. Then you press enter. Then we need to set up environment variables. So what we now need to do is create the env local file. And I'm just going to create that for us now. So in here is going to be .env.local, and this is where the keys will be so that we have our authentication linked up with our account over here. So I'm just going to paste them in and then be right back. Right, so now that I've pasted them in, what I want to do next is I want to click resume your development like so. And actually what we could do is we could go into our configuration, into our new application. So let me just refresh this. And in here we have CreatorHub. So let's go into this one. So now that we've configured our application, what we're going to be doing next is we're going to be going through the workspace in Clerk, what you can and can't do. And then we will do that next. Right, so now what we want to do is look at the personal workspace. So if we go into the overview section, first of all, you can see here that we have signed in with this email over here, and that was done through Google. So what we want to do is if we click on our app here, we are logged in, so everything is fine. Let's go back into the Creator Hub. In here, we can go into the overview. We have our sign up section here. You can also check components out, which we will do later on in this video. And then we can also deploy our app to production. Here we can configure our application. So this is where we get to the configure section. So there's a few options we can go through, which we will do in this crash course. Email address. So users can add email addresses to their account. These are just options that you can select, but you can basically go through each one. Phone number is essentially a pro feature. So if you have the pro account with Clerk, then you can add that in. Users can set a username for their account and first and last names. So we're going to leave that for this build just because we have the information in our final build that is set up, which only takes in the email address, password, and confirm password. You can add further information in, such as them two features as well, and then that can add to the account also. So going back into here, we also can allow users to delete their account as well. So that is the first section. The connections, well, we have Google as our social provider, but you can add further connections for all users in here as well. So let's click onto this one. You can essentially use all of these built-in providers, but essentially we're going to keep it as the built-in Google one. So I'm going to enable sign up and sign in, and also block email sub-addresses. You can tailor this however you want, basically. So I'm just going to click cancel in here. You also have Web3, you have multi-factor authentication. So this is an add-on that you can add as well. You have restrictions. So sign up mode is public. You can restrict it to whatever you want. And also you can disable signups and have a wait list as well. So if you think about every option that they provide for you, there's quite a lot in here that you would need to manually do yourself if you didn't have something like Clerk available. Again, attack protection, you have this as well. And the catch-up widget at sign up, this is important. And this is what we will be looking at later as well in the video. Essentially, you have a capture, which is done with Cloudflare. It just basically says verify that you're a human. So that's that one. There's plenty more features in here, but essentially what I want to focus on is you've got the developers section in here. So API keys, this is what we have, and we've added in our env local. And then do we have any updates? There's no updates. The other ones potentially you would use is integration. So this is where you would have Firebase, and then you can also read the documentation along with Google Analytics with production only purposes. So this is where you would kind of deploy your application, and then you can see the analytics behind everything to do with Clerk as well. And again, we have organization management, which I'm not going to touch on in this crash course, but I will do another crash course for this specifically. So we'll build on top of what we have. And essentially, that's everything that we need. We also have subscriptions. We have our users in here, so all of the users. Invitations as well. So this is where we can send invitations. So we can create a user, or we can invite a user with a link that is sent to their email address. This is where you would invite your users as well. So you would get like a magic link, and that's how you invite the users to view your dashboard or whatever it may be. So next, what we want to do is build our homepage over here. So let's go ahead and build that functionality. Right, so let's build our homepage. So in our code, if we close everything down, we want to go to our homepage. So this is the page we have. We want to delete everything to do with the boilerplate code, which is all to do with the information. So what I want to do is I've got a main tag. So let me just quickly add in the relevant information in here. So let's close the main tag down as well and save that. Let's go in our UI. Now you can see we have everything in here. So this is a simple app demonstrating Clerk integration with Next.js. What we do need is a header. So we at the minute have the header coming from Clerk itself. So we will build our own navbar as well. And then on top of that, we also need to have sections based on whether we signed out or signed in. So if you look at the layout.tsx file in here, we have this section here, which is when someone signed out, show something. When someone signed in, then we can also show something as well. So we can copy that, and in here, I'm just going to paste that in. We also need to import these from Clerk Next.js, which is essentially the relevant information we need. The only things I want are the signed out and signed in sections. So here we can delete this and put you are signed or you are not signed in, and then we can navigate to that page over here. And then in this section, we can say you are signed in, and then check your dashboard like that. Let me save that, and actually, let me add this in. So now let's go into here. It says you are signed in, check your dashboard, because we are signed in. Let me sign out, and it says you are not signed in, please sign in. And then if we click here, we go to the sign in page. So everything is working correctly on that one. So now what I want to do is, if I go back to the home page, we need to now create this top nav bar over here, and essentially we want to add the buttons that we have as well, such as the sign in and sign up. So let's go ahead and do that. So let me just bring in all of the sections that we have in the final build. So let me copy this. So the sign out and signed in sections we can remove and replace with this, which essentially is a few things going on. So let me just go back to the signed out section. So everything within here is what we need to look at. So in here we have a div which has the links or the buttons that we have. So this one goes to the sign in page. This one goes to the sign up page. So when we signed out, we show that. And then when we signed in, what we would show is a div saying you're signed in, a user button, which is essentially a Clerk component. And then we have links to the dashboard, which will be only shown when authenticated. And we also have the profile, which is only shown when authenticated. So that's what we need to build as the functionality. So let me save that and let's view the UI. So now you can see sign in and sign up. So let me click sign in. We go to the sign in page, which is correct. And sign up goes to the sign up page, which is correct. So now what we want to do is we want to, first of all, build our custom sign in pages with Clerk along with the custom sign up pages. So we will do that one next. Right, so the first page we want to create is the sign in page. This is a custom page. So if we click on here, first of all, it says sign in, and this is what Clerk provides as the basic option. It's essentially the UI is built for you. So what we want to do is build our own custom sign in page. So let's go ahead and do that. So going into the code, if we go into here in app router, I'm going to create a new file. And essentially this new file is going to be within this sign in page. So what we've done here is we've done slash sign in, and these double brackets over here in Next.js means catch all routes within sign in. So essentially whenever a sign in slash whatever it may be, that's when we build the sign in page. So that is how it would work. What I want to do is I want to first of all create the sign in page. So let's go ahead and do that. And it's RAFCE. We call this one sign in page like so. And you can see here is basically a form that has all the relevant information in. So we can now check that the sign in page works. So let me just sign in, goes to the sign in page. We have an email, password, and sign in as well. So somehow what we need to do is connect this with a Clerk, obviously improve the UI as well. So let's go ahead and do that. So first thing is this is going to be a client component because we're going to have the use state to take the values of the input such as the email and the password on the client side. So let's go ahead and do that. So what we would do in this scenario, as you may have seen in the crash course for Next.js, is you would simply just type in use client, meaning this is the client component. Let me bring in my pieces of state up top here. We need to also import them in from React. Then what I want to do is have a form just over here. Let me just bring in the form. Everything inside my form now is populated with the relevant styling. We need to import a Google button, which we don't have, which is a component that we will create. And then again, we need to create the Google sign-in functionality in our code as well. So in here, I'm just going to say console log Google sign-in clicked. Let's save that. And then what we also need to do is we need to add some styling for our form itself. So let me just bring that in along with the styling for the div. So form class name is this one. And then the div itself will have its own class name also. So this is to do with Tailwind. And if you don't know about Tailwind, I have already done a crash course on that in the channel as well. So now let's check our sign in page. You can see here it's populated the sign in page. Let's just remove this sign in also as well, which is this H1. Save that. And now we have our client page over here. What we want to do next is we want to create our Google button. And the way we create our Google button is going to be with Clerk components. So I'll show you how to do that one next. Right, so what I want to do is create this Google button, but that is done with Clerk components. So let me just close the app router down. At the top level, what I want to do is create a new folder. This is the components folder, like so. And in here, I'm just going to create a file called googlebtn.tsx. So this is our Google component. So it's REFCE, which is essentially our Google button, like so. And then let me save that, and then we can just import this Google button in our sign in page. So let me uncomment this and then import this in like so. So now at the minute we have the sign in with Google button, which is fine, but I want it to look a bit nicer than that. So let's go ahead and do our Google button with Clerk components. So again, with our Google button, this will be a client component. So it depends on what methods you use with Clerk. Some are client, some are server side rendered as well. So let me just save this. So this is the Next.js docs over here, but here I have Clerk component. So it's clerk.com/docs/component, which is essentially what we have. These are the guides for Next.js we have here. But if you scroll down, we have Clerk components. So I want to click overview on this one. So here it says we have UI components that we need and we want to use. So we also have the sign in, sign up, Google One Tap, and all of these components. We will use a few of them in this crash course, such as the user profile, which if we click on is this component over here. We can go back, we can view some more, such as the waitlist, which is essentially a waitlist, and many other ones that we have. So these are the built-in components that we can use, but what we also have is a UI library named Clerk Element, which is this one over here. So this is like Material UI, for example. So in here we have elements, and essentially what I've done is kind of copied what they have in here, but essentially we just need the Google button. So this is how you would use it. If I go into the element which is in beta at the minute, if we click on overview, you can see here are the docs and the GitHub discussion that we have. Why Clerk elements is essentially a style guide that we can use. So let me just install this first of all, because then what we can do is actually implement Clerk elements in our app as well. So this will be npmi at clerk/elements, and then all we need to do now is run dev once more. And now what I want to do is import start as clerk from elements common and start as sign in from elements sign in. So this is on the sign in page. We're going to be using the button. So let me just save that. And then what I can do is essentially bring in all of my JSX that I need. So let me paste that in and save. What this essentially does is it has a class name with the Tailwind styles, but the sign in, we have sign in.root, we have clerk.connection, which is essentially extensions of a component within Clerk that we can use. So in this one, it's the Google connection we want. We have SVGs and so on, but then we also have the sign in with Google over here. So what you can do is essentially look at the docs and take a look at how you can implement going forward. Here's some examples of what you want to do. So let me just click on the sign in components. You can see here we have steps such as start, verification steps, and other ones over here. And then there's many examples that you can use. But what we want to do is we want to go into our app over here, and this button now should be re-rendered to the relevant one. So now I'm on 3000 and localhost 3000. So if I press enter and I want to say, let's go into here, then we click sign in to go to our sign in page. And then now we have our Google sign in button over here. So let me click this and you can see it signs us in immediately with Google, and then it shows our homepage with the sign-in information. So if we go into our VS Code at the page level, this section is now showing, which is you are signed in. We are using the user button from Clerk. So let me go into that, which is this one over here and this one in the right as well. We can click here and we can do what we need to do as well. So if we click go to the dashboard, we don't have that page, and we also don't have the go to profile page. But before all of that, what I want to do is create the navbar over here at the top, and we will do that one next. Right, so let's go ahead and build the navbar component. So in our code, I'm going to create a new component. This is called navbar.tsx. And then we can just do RAFCE for now. And then in here, this is essentially the navbar saying my app. Let's save that. And then in the layout.tsx over here, what I want to do instead of this header here, I'm just going to put in the navbar component like so. And then all we want to do is import that and let me save. And then here you can see now this is the new navbar saying my app. So there's nothing to do with signed in or signed out. We've taken that out, which is the existing Clerk logic that we want to, and we want to use our own sign in and sign up pages. So that's what we will do. So going back into the navbar component itself, what I want to add is this UI over here. So let me just bring it in. So essentially we have a nav with the relevant class name, paste that in, and then we just need to close this nav off like so and import the links in. So this is saying that with the CreatorHub, which is going to be on the left hand side, and then after that we want to have another div. So let me just create a new div. This is going to be everything on the right hand side. So everything in here is where we have the links to the relevant places for the dashboard. So for now, what I'm going to say is I'm going to copy this, bring it in here. So we are going to have a display name. We're going to have a user button, and we're also going to have a custom sign out button. So this is a component we will be building later. And then we also want an admin page. Well, that's only if the user is an admin. So let me just comment this one out. So this is everything when they signed in. So if you think about what we've done in the past is where if someone signed in, then we use the Clerk signed in component. But I want to show you another way of using it so that it's done on the server side and we get the information on the server side. So there's a hook you can use, which is essentially this one over here, which is const user await current user. So let me import this in, and you can see here it says import current user from Clerk Next.js server. So let me save that. And now what I want to do is with Next.js top level await needs an async. So all I need to do here is change this to a navbar like so. And then all we need to do at the bottom is we can delete this section here. So now let me save that. And I want to console log what the user is. So this should generate in the terminal. So let's just save this and actually comment out the display name. Or actually, let me just do const display name is equal to user.fullname or guest. So that covers that error, and there's no more errors in here. Now, one thing left to do is essentially render this into our layout. So in here, we already have done that actually. So let me save this. And now I want to see the user. So you can see because it's server side, everything is logged in the actual terminal at the bottom over here. So now we have all of this information about the user that we can grab and attach. So here we have the email address. So that's a good one. What do we want to render here is the name. So we can say user dot first name, or these are the external accounts. So let me just ignore that. But right at the top, this is the object here. So we don't have a phone number, that's fine. We can get the email address and we can get the first name. So let me just change this to user.firstname, which we have. Otherwise, we can show the email. So the email will be handy for when we have signed in through the actual registration form. So we will do that sign up form later on. But essentially now we should be able to see a display name over here. So now let me just save this and let's check that actually renders. And you can see here that it actually renders correctly. We need to also make sure that the component here is spanned across the entire length. So let me just quickly do that. So if we go into our page.tsx, so on the layout, should I say, so in here, we have the navbar being rendered, but the navbar itself needs to have a class name. So let me just quickly add the body class name as well to the top, which essentially is the background and so on. This is not a header anymore. We need to delete this one. So the navbar takes care of everything for us. And now all we need to do is save. And now you can see here, this is all full width. We can access the user profile component from Clerk. You can also sign out. But what I want to do is create our own sign out button. But before we do the sign out button, there is something missing in our navbar. So let's go into here. And it was the custom sign out button, which we will do. But there was this section over here, which was to do with the admin. So let me just quickly uncomment this section out as well. Now, what will happen is with this admin, we need to define a variable to say that this is the admin. So in here, we can get something that says, actually, the user role is the admin. So let me find that and we will declare the variable. So that is essentially const admin is equal to user.public metadata.isAdmin. If it's true, then that's fine. If that's not even there, then it is false. So what I'm going to do instead is just copy what I have, put that in here, which is the same is equal to admin. So if it's admin, then we can show this section. If it's not admin, then we won't show this section, and we essentially can't go to the admin page. So if we go in here, this person's not admin. So let's just verify that is the case. So we would say user.public metadata. So let me find that in here. And in here, there's no object of role. This person isn't an admin. So therefore, we won't need to essentially show that link over here. So that is the correct functionality. What I want to do next is uncomment this and create the custom sign out button with its functionality, and we will do that one next. Right, so let's go ahead and create this custom sign out button. Essentially, we just need to create a new component of custom sign out button.tsx. In here, let me just quickly import in this one, which is RAFCE. This is the sign out button. By default, it's a server component. So if you think about Next.js, everything is server first, and then we have the use client at the top to be able to use the client. So first thing we need to do is render a button, which is the sign out button. So in here, let me just paste in what I have. Then we need to change to a client component. So let's go ahead and do that with use client at the top. And then what I want to do is create a function. So I'm just going to ignore Copilot for now. And I'm going to say const handle click, or you can call it something more descriptive actually than handle click. But let's just save that for now. And I'm going to say instead of this, it's going to be handle sign out. And then we can rename this one at the top. So now that is all working fine. We have the sign out button. Let's check the UI to see if it's rendered. It's not at the minute. Let's just save everything. And now you can see this is our sign out button. But when we click it, it says sign out clicked, which is working correctly. Now what we need to do is we actually need to sign the user out of this session. So the way to do that is via a hook. So this hook is from Clerk itself, and we want to access the function sign out, which is not require actually. It is just use Clerk. This is a client hook that we can use, and then all we need to do is do this as an async function now. So this is async, and then we need to await sign out like that. But in the await sign out, what we also need to do is we need to have a redirect URL. So we will look at the redirect URLs, and they are in the env file. But in here as well, we can pass in a redirect URL. Essentially, we handle sign out, we async, await sign out, and then we pass in the redirect to home. But in our case, we want to go into the sign in page. So let me do sign dash in like that. So now let me save this and let's test it out. So we're currently signed in, and you can test that via this object here saying that this is the user's information. So next, when we click sign out, the user's information should disappear, and all of this extra information that is personalized should disappear as well. So let's click sign out. Sign out clicked, and then we were also navigated to the sign in page. So it says hello guest as the fallback, and again we need to sign in again. So that is the navbar complete. You can see everything that went along with building that and how we can access information with use Clerk to use Clerk's method, so you don't have to create them yourself. It's just an easier way of importing in functions that are already there. So now that the sign-in page is complete, there is one more thing that we need to do in the sign-in page. So actually, this Google sign-in we don't really need, because the Google button handles this with the Clerk connection. But what I want to show you is if you don't have the Clerk elements used, then I want to show you how to create your own custom Google sign-in here. So what we will do is we will do that one next. Right, so what we want to do is we want to create our own custom Google sign-in button. We already have done the UI for it, and if you use Clerk Elements, then the connection already happens, so you don't really need to worry about that. So let me just comment this one out for now. And I want to say this one is just Google button, sign-in button, something like that. Let me save this. We need to uncomment this function here. So now this section here, we need to create a Google sign-in function. So at the top level, what I'm going to do is create a folder called utils. And in here, I'm going to create a file called authentication.ts. So this is where all of the authentication functionality will go into. Let me copy this and I'm going to say export const handle Google sign in, and we'll just use this for now. So now this is a sign in resource, which is a type, and this comes from Clerk itself. So let me just quickly import that type in right at the top here. And then we need to await sign in, which again, this await sign in will also come in from Clerk as well. So let's just keep that as it is. Let me just quickly save this. Now this will error out, but what we want to do is we want to import in this Google sign in, which is the function we have, but we need is loaded, and we also need sign in coming from Clerk. So this is essentially where we pass everything in from Clerk, and that is done via a hook. And before we use Clerk, but now what we want to use is something called use sign in, like this, and this comes from Clerk itself at the top here, Clerk Next.js. So now we have access to sign in, which is a sign in resource, and is loaded, which is a boolean, and also import in this Clerk type as well. So let's go add that type in. So now that's all of that set. So now in our Google sign in function over here, first of all, if there's is loaded and is sign in is not there, then we want to return. So that's fine. Then we can add a console log as well, just saying attempting Google sign in, something like that. We don't need a try catch in this scenario because we can just use the sign in method to chain a dot then on as well. So, or we can just copy this section over here. If I save this, now what we need is the strategy. So authenticate with redirect. And there's one element missing, which is the redirect URL complete. So let me just save this. So the strategy is OAuth Google. The redirect is to the dashboard. And again, the complete redirect is the dashboard as well. So when we sign in, it authenticates with the redirect. It uses our Google information, and then it navigates us to the dashboard. So that's essentially what would happen. If there's an error, you can put in here error.message, something like that, or we can just pass in the error like so. This again is optional because it has to be instance of type error. So we can just quickly fix this with Copilot. So let it cover all of this for us. So now that is the Google sign-in function complete. Let's go into the sign-in page. You can see everything is all set. I also want to mention that later on we will be covering the custom sign-in method, so email address and password, and then we do need the capture for that, so we'll look at that later. But let me just save this. So now if I click sign in here now, I can click the Google sign in button. If you scroll down, it says nothing's happening. So why is nothing happening? Let me just check on the sign in page. If we scroll up, it says div on click handle Google sign in. So let's just do a button actually, Command X, and then this one will be a button. Here we go. So on click handle Google sign in. Let's save that. And then this will be a button. So let me just refresh. Attempting Google sign in, you can see. And then it navigates us to the dashboard page, which is correct. At the minute, we haven't created the dashboard page, but you can see here, if I go back to the home page as well, it says you are signed in. You can go to the dashboard. You have our information in here. If we click sign out, again, you can see this is the custom Google sign in page as well. What I'm also going to do is just comment back in the Google button. So you have two ways of doing this. This way is with Clerk Elements, and then the other way is with the actual custom function with custom function, and that is in the utils folder over here. So now I can save that, And now we have created our own custom Google sign-in. So that's if you didn't have Clerk elements in place. So now you can see we signed in, we have all the information of the user as well in here. So you can get the image and many other things in here, but that is essentially how you would do that. Right, so what I want to do next is create the sign up page. So let me go into sign out. In here, we would sign out. We're in the CreatorHub. Let me click the sign up page. This page isn't created, so I want to do that one next. Right, so let's go ahead and create the sign up page. So in our code, all we want to do is simply just copy what we've done for the sign in page. So let me just go into the sign up page. In here, let's create a new file. It will be slash sign dash up forward slash dot 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 sign up. Close the parentheses and then again page.tsx. Press enter in here. Now what I want to do is I want to render or return the actual JSX. So let me just bring that in and it's REFCE. This is the sign up page. And then in this div, I'm going to paste in what I have and also need to bring in the use states because this is going to be a client component. So let me bring that in at the top. And then right at the top, I also need to have use client like so. And then also import in use router from Next router, use state from React as well. Let me just save that. And you can see there's a few things that I need to create. So you can see handle sign up. We have is loaded and handled verify. So there's a few things going on in this page. First of all, what we want to do is we want to create the component. So we will take in the email, the password, and also the password again one more time. Then we press continue. Then what will happen is it will verify us with a captcha. Then after that, once that's all done, then an email will get sent to your email address or the email that is put into the email field. That will then have a verification code. And then with that verification code, you put that into the verify input that we have in this component over here at the top, just here with a 6-digit code. When that code is verified successfully, then the user will get navigated to the dashboard. So that's how it all works. So let's go ahead and create the functions. So first function is const handle sign up, which essentially can be the sign up, but I want to actually do this myself. So let me just delete this. And we can just say console log sign up clicked. Also, we have a handle verify function, which again, we can do the guard close in here, but I want to just console log and close this off. So now let me save that. So handle verify is in here. Let me save everything. And then there's one more error, which is to do with sign up, which is going to come from Clerk itself. So again, we're going to utilize the hooks in this one. So let me just fix the types for these events. So this is a form event and the other one is a form event as well. We just need to import them in from React. And then now what I want to do is access Clerk use sign up hook this time. So before in the other page, we did something like use sign in over here. And now I just want to use the Clerk's use sign up functionality. So now you can see the power of Clerk. Essentially, we have hooks already created that we can then reuse. So everything is all set up for you correctly. And now we have is loaded. If it's not loaded, return null. Otherwise, we want to use a sign up in here. If I scroll down, we have a verify method and also the sign up functionality. So when we sign up, what happens is we call this handle sign up. That's fine. This function we need to create. So let's go ahead and create that function. It's quite simple. So what I want to do first of all is check that the passwords are working after the prevent default. So if password is not equal to confirm password, then we can say passwords do not match. So let me just save this for now. And let's check the actual UI. So let me just see what's the error. It's a runtime error. So let me just refresh the page. It says next router not mounted. So let me go in here. Let's do a bit of a cleanup. So we're not using the router. So let me just delete that. And then this should fix that issue. So this is our sign up page. We put in an email address. The passwords need to match. Then we sign up. Alternatively, we could just navigate to the sign in page, which is good. Otherwise, we can just click sign up, goes to the sign up page. That's also good. So now in handle sign up, If they don't match, we get an error saying passwords don't match, and then that will pop up in the UI, which is handled in the JSX. So let's go ahead and do that. And then what we want to do is we want to do a try catch. So in this try catch, let me just bring in the final piece of code. In here, what we do is we await sign up, which is the method from the hook that we have over here in the use sign up. Signup.create. We create the email address from the email, which is in the UI. The password is again from the UI, which is this state here. So you can also do password and password like that to help you out. Then after that, we do await signup dot prepare email address verification, and that is via an email code. So that is again how you would sign up. Then we would set verifying to true and we would set error to nothing. Again, you can optimize the error handling in here. This all here will send an email address with the code in. So I can just put in a comment in here, check if email address is required. Is not the case. It will send verification email with the code like that. So let me just save that. And then in the handle verify, it essentially does something of the sort where it would kind of navigate you to the relevant page that you need. In our case, it's the dashboard page. So before we do that, I want to go into my Clerk dashboard over here, and I want to delete this user so that when we sign it up again, I want to be able to see that actually this is the person that signed up. So we can actually sign up with my email address. So let's just finish off the verify functionality. So in here, I'm just going to bring in the final code and run you through it. Paste that in. Let's implement router again. So const router is use router from next router. So now in handles verify, we have an attempt, which is await sign up dot attempt email address verification with the code. If it's complete, then we set active the session. So the active session here is attempt dot create session ID, and then we navigate to the dashboard. Otherwise, do this error handling over here. So now that is all complete. Let's go ahead and sign up with the email address and the password. So in our code, let me just refresh. So here we've got an error saying next router is not mounted because we need to bring this further down. So let's just bring that down in here. Let me save this and then refresh. And now the error's happened again. So what I actually want to do is I don't want to use this. What I will do instead is I will do window location and then href of the dashboard, because that then won't use the static page. It will just refresh the page and then it will work correctly. So it's window location href of dashboard like that. So now let me just quickly save and let's try signing in, or signing up, should I say. So in here, my email address is imrancodes@gmail.com. I'm going to put in my password. You can use this password manager as well, but I'm just going to put in a random password. And first of all, what I'm going to do is click sign up. And what should happen is it should say passwords do not match. So let me just click sign up. Sign up clicked, passwords do not match. So it's hit that one, that's fine. Let's type in correct passwords this time. So now let's do our password one more time. And now if I click sign up, it will say sign up clicked. It will send an email verification. So let me just click sign up. Something's happened in here. Then it changes to this component, which is the email verification. I have also got logic for the resend code. So if you don't get the code, then you can say resend codes, which is resend code, which essentially is this functionality here. So in the resend code functionality is essentially the same as what we've done in the handle verify. So it's await sign up, prepare email address verification, and so on. And then here you can say a new code has been sent to your email. But what I want to do is check my email. So let's go ahead and check my email address. So now I've got this here, which is from CreatorHub, which is our app. And I've got this code in here. So let me just copy this code. And then I can put that into here. And now what I want to do is I want to verify. So let me just go in the network tab. You can see these were to the Clerk browser over here. So sign up with the Clerk API, prepare the verification. And now once I click verify, I should get a 200 response and then get navigated to the dashboard page. So let me just press verify, sign up. Over here, I've got the Clerk API. The response should be a 200 with the header saying 200 OK. Now we are navigated to the dashboard page. Everything is working. So if I go to the home page, it now says you are signed in. Let me go to here in my users section. You can see here I've just signed up here as well, so I can see further information. I was added on this date and all the information I need is in here, and that is how you would sign up with your email address and password. So what I'm going to be doing next is I'm just going to create the dashboard page so it all comes to fruition, and then we will do that one next. Right, so what we want to do is create the dashboard, but what I also want to show you is if I sign out, I want to show you how the sign-in functionality works now that everything is in place. So let me put in my email address and also my password as well. And now when I press sign in, I mentioned previously in the course about a captcha. So we should see a captcha from Cloudflare. So let me just press sign in. Let's ignore this for now. And in the console, what's happened? Clerk has been loaded with development keys. That's fine. Nothing's really happened in here. Let me just try one more time, and we can actually debug what is going on if it does not sign up. So all it's doing is it's essentially reloading the page. So I wonder if the prevent default isn't working. So let me close everything down. I want to open this page, and you can see here we haven't set active on something. So we've done the Google sign in, which is fine, but on the sign up section we haven't done anything. So that's what I want to do next. So let's go ahead and implement that logic. So it's quite simple. Similar to the sign up page, we have access to this Clerk hook over here, which is use sign in. Then on the form submit, we need to do something to do with handle sign in submit. So let's go ahead and do that. So in authentication in our utils, we've done the Google sign in, that all works correctly. We just need to do the same for the handle sign in submit. There's quite a lot going on, so what I want to do is essentially bring in the function, and I could run it through with you. So we just bring in the relevant types from TypeScript, set active as well from Clerk types, and then this is a form event. So we pass in the arguments. So we have email, password, sign in, which is a sign in resource. The error, which is our use state error, is loaded comes from the use sign in hook. Set active again comes from this use sign in hook, and then E for preventing default behavior. So that's fine. Then we log that the sign in is submitted. If this isn't there, then we just return. Again, same with the no email and no password. Then we do an attempt. So this says await sign in dot create. The email is the identifier and then the password. Once that's done, we go through this if else statement. So if it's complete, we create a session ID and we set it to the active session in here. Otherwise, it's undefined. Session ID is missing. And then we also have our catch block in here. So that is pretty much it. So all we need to do is pass in the relevant information on our form. So going back to here on our form, we have the onSubmit method with the class name. So we have the form class name, and I want to put in onSubmit handle sign in submit, which we implement from our authentication TS file. Now let me save that. Again, the captcha will kick in. So this is it over here. And now let's test that it all works correctly with the account that is already created. So now if I clear the terminal, press sign in, it says sign in submitted, post sign in error, or try another method. So something has gone wrong. So let's see, password is incorrect. Try again or use another method. Okay, let me just try the password one more time. So now you can see we are signed in. That's all working correctly because the user is signed in here, but nothing has happened with the redirect. So what I want to do now is on successful sign in, we need to add the redirects, and all of the redirects go in the env config, and we will do that one next. Right, so now that we are signed in, you can see here on the right hand side, we was null, and now we do have a user signed in. You can also see here that I am signed in, and you can also verify that I'm signed in via here on the home page saying you're signed in. I can go to the dashboard. We have not created that, and we will do soon. Now what I want to do is in my Clerk dashboard over here, if I go into configure and scroll down to account portal in here, we have our pages, which are the authentication pages. So this is when we use the sign-in component from Clerk along with the other components in here. What I want to do is look at redirects, and in here now we have an after sign up fallback. I want this to be a dashboard. After sign in fallback, I want to be a dashboard. And then after logo click, we want to go to the home page. So these are the redirects that we have in place. So I want to save that. That's all that part done. And then I also want to update my env file as well so that it reflects that information. So let me go into here and you can see my public and secret keys, but I'm going to delete them after this course. So you can see here, next public clerk sign in URL is the sign in / sign in. And then when we sign up or sign in, it's going to go to / dashboard over here. So let me save that. And then let me go into my app. I want to sign out. So let me just sign out. And then I'm going to sign in. But once I sign in this time, I will get navigated to the dashboard page. And actually, before I do that, let me actually create the dashboard page. So that's quite a simple one. I will just do a new file in here. It will be dashboard / page.tsx. Press enter. And the dashboard page simply just has all of the stats for what we require. I've got some dummy data in here, but essentially the only piece of data that we will use for our current user is coming from Next.js current user over here. And also, if there's not a user, then we have this clerk component which says redirect to sign in as well. So you can use that from Clerk Next.js. Again, this is a server component. So now I can save this. And then when I essentially log in this time, I should get navigated to the dashboard page. So let me put in my credentials. So now let me sign in. And now I will get an email saying this is my verification code. So if I click sign in, we are signed in, but nothing's already happened. So let me just debug why that was the case. So let me just sign out again. And then I just want to sign in. It does sign me in, but we should be navigating to the relevant page. So if we check why that has not happened. So in the function that we use, which is essentially the handle sign in submit, if we go into this function, so it says you're already signed in. So the reason that's happened is we need to restart the server because we've made changes to our env file. So let me just refresh everything, make sure it all works from scratch. You can see here I'm signed in to the dashboard, which is fine. So now we're signed in, that all is fine. What we need to do is just in the sign in submit, what I want to do is just navigate on success. So here we can just do window location href to the dashboard page like so. And then all we do is save that, and in our UI over here, we just need to sign out once again and test that it all works correctly. So let me just refresh the page, paste in my email address, and then after signing in successfully, this will then navigate us to the dashboard over here. And now this is the same functionality when we sign up as well. So that's how you handle all the redirects, and that is how you would create your dashboard as well. So next, what we want to do is if I sign out, first of all, and go into CreatorHub, and if I was to force the dashboard link and press enter, you can see here now, that is a protected route. And what I want to do in the middleware is I want to also define what is a public route and what isn't a public route, and we will do that one next. Right, so I want to define what is a public route and what isn't a public route. First of all, let's go ahead into our middleware. So in the middleware, this is the basic one that we get from Clerk itself, but there's extra functionality we can add. So let me just bring my code in. So now this is an array, which is essentially, if it's a public route, we have something called create route matcher. This is essentially returns a function that accepts a request object and returns whether the request matches the list in here that we've defined. So essentially the / page, which is the home page, anything to do with the sign in page and anything to do with the sign up page. Then if it's not a public route, then we protect everything else. That's essentially what we've added in. So essentially that is how you would protect the routes with Clerk as well. What I want to do next is with Next.js, we have access to APIs. So we can have API definitions, but sometimes you want to protect them API definitions. So I'm going to show you how to protect them to only show them API definitions if you are authenticated and logged in with Clerk. And we will do that one next. Right, so if you want to create an API route in Next.js, all you do is you go to app, and the folder that you put it in is the /API folder. But I've already shown you how to do that. So what I want to do in this one is show you how to protect the API so that only the users that you want to see are the authenticated users. So all I'm going to do is paste in the API folder that I have. This will be the user data that we want, and with the naming convention is routes.ts. So what will happen is we have a get method in here. This is taking in a request or next request. We get auth, and this comes from Clerk Next.js server, passing in the request object, and then we can get access to the user IDs in here. So if there isn't a user ID, then all we do is say unauthorized. And if there is, then we render the JSON or whatever it is in the API that we want to show. In this scenario, is secret data for user and then the user ID. So let me just save this. Let me close it, the terminal, restart the server once more, and then what I want to do is I want to refresh and navigate to the relevant API, which is /API/user dash data. So let me go to that one, /API/user dash data, press enter, and I should get a 401 saying unauthorized. Or what it did instead was it's redirected me with the redirect URL to the sign in page, because that is a protected route. So what I can do now is sign in with Google. This is using the Clerk Elements button, and then we signed in and it's saying the page isn't available. Let me just double check why that is. And now you can see that the message is showing, and the reason it was a 404 was because I named this routes.ts instead of route.ts. So now you can see this message is showing here. What I want to do is also show you what it looks like when I do sign out. So let me just press back and sign out. And then if I go to /API/user data and press enter, and you can see I was redirected back to the sign in page. So that is how you will protect your API routes. Essentially, it's just creating your API, going into the code, using this get auth object from Next.js/server in Clerk, getting the user ID. If there is one, then we can see that. And that is how you would do that. There's one final thing that I want to do, which is create the custom user profile page. And what we will do is do that one next. Right, so finally, we just need to create the profile page. So all I'm going to do is just copy this and paste this into the app folder. So essentially, this is the route for the profile page. Essentially, it has the same wrapper that I have, and then we are just importing the user profile from Clerk Next.js. So it's as simple as that. Let me just save that and test this one out. So CreatorHub, we need to sign in. Let me sign in with my email address. And actually, let me just sign in with Google. So you can see here, it navigates you to that piece of information, which is fine, but I don't want that. And then I can click to go to profile. And now you can see this is my profile page that I have from Clerk using their Clerk component. So that is as simple as it is. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to deploy this on Next.js, and then we will do that one next. Right, so now that the project's ready, what I want to do is deploy everything to Vercel. What I also want to do is run the build, so npm run build. This will just basically do a Next.js build, and if you don't know your commands, you can go in here in package.json, and then the script here is essentially build, which is next build. So it's building everything for us. You can see there's no errors as well. It's rendered static pages for us, which is 8 out of 8. And then this will get served to the web. So that's all fine. Now we just want to go into GitHub, create a new repository. So this one is called CreatorHub, and I'm going to make this public. So let me just create this. And now all you need to do is add it onto our repo that we've created. So in here, if I paste in that command I copied, git remote add origin, and then all you need to do now is just push everything. So let's just do git add everything, git commit with a message saying that we have completed create Clerk Auth crash course, like that. And then all we need to do now is git push. This will push everything for us. I generally just copy it again from here and then paste that in. So now if I go into GitHub and refresh, this is all of our code that we have available. Everything you need is in here. So this is basically the CreatorHub that we have. And now what I want to do is I want to go into Vercel. So let's go into Vercel and deploy the application. So now that I'm in Vercel, all I need to do for my project is click add new project. And then here you can clone many templates, but I've got the CreatorHub in here. So I'm just going to import that. I also have environment variables. So I need to add them in. So again, you can basically paste the env below. So so the only thing left to do is to add our environment variables. So I will add them in and then be right back. Right, so now that I've added them in, all I need to do is press deploy, and then this will deploy everything for us and this will then generate a URL for us that we can then use and then test that everything works correctly. Whilst I'm doing that though, what I'm going to do is in the users, I'm going to delete the users. So let me just delete this so that we have a clean slate, and then we want to be able to test that this works as well. So we can also create a production instance, but I'm just going to keep it as development just so everything works correctly. Right, so now you can see here, it says, congratulations, you've just deployed a new project on here. You can carry on with all this information in here, but what I want to do is I want to click this. So let's go into the URL and actually let's test that it all works correctly. So let me just start by signing up. So you can sign up in here or you can sign in. What I will do is I'll just sign up with my email address, and you can see the URL is there as well. Let me put in my password. And now I want to press sign up. Now I should get an email address. So let me just check my emails. You can see this is the email that I've got, which is a verification code. And also in the dashboard, you can update the templates for this as well. So you just play around with that. I want to click verify, and then I should get navigated to the dashboard as well, which I am doing as well in here. If I want to see my API, I can also see that as well. If I go back, I can go into CreatorHub, and then I can also go to my profile, which I've created as well. So that is essentially the crash course for Clerk and Next.js. You can see this is all working fine. Everything is working as expected. If I press my sign out button, I'm now signed out. I go back to the sign in page here. I can also go into the CreatorHub here and go back to the home page. If I go into my dashboard and I refresh, I now have that user that has been created. I hope you like this crash course. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.